Welcome, everyone. So, as everything becomes digital and becoming more connected and sharing more, which brings us to our today's topic ensuring secure remote access and data protection. My name is Mohammad Mahroz. I am CEO of letsremotify, a premium platform to match talent with top tech companies around the globe. We have Nami Mufti with us today, who is head of security at Farmers Business Network. Nami, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So, Nami, just to kick things off, what's your take on the topic?
Um, so, I think generally the world has changed quite a bit. Even before COVID hit, a lot of companies were starting to explore flexible working arrangements, trying to think about how they can increase their talent pool by not being limited to geographies. But COVID came and basically put that on steroids, and most companies were just forced to go remote. Um, so I think that's the world today, right? The expectations of the workforce are that they should have the ability to work anywhere, when they want, how they want to work. It's been proven. Um, I think there's a big plus and a positive for corporations and employers as well, because um, real estate is expensive. Real estate is fixed. Real estate is not flexible. So being able to quickly react to needs and flexing up and down, also having the ability to tap into a talent pool across a much larger footprint where you may not have been able to get the same type of talent to move to a certain place. I think it's a win-win for everybody. I know working remotely entirely is not for everyone. I will tell you, I miss going to the office. But I am fully remote and I make the most of it. It's something that is something that I needed right now. So I think there's a win for everybody. I think this is how things are going to operate. I don't think it's going to be completely remote. There is going to be some sort of hybrid model that we will um, normalize on, because there is still a lot of value of bringing people together from time to time and having face-to-face time as well. But I think this is the way we're going to operate moving forward.
Of course, I value your thoughts. Like I've been working remotely for like last 8 years, and I
Mm.
personally enjoy the freedom that I have to move from
Yeah,
one place to another and still working with the same client with the same people. Don't have to readjust and everything. So it just feels great. But of
yeah,
course, as you said, like working fully remotely is not for everybody. And
correct.
of course, depending on the organization that you work in, the type of data that you are dealing with, and everything. Coming to the next topic or subtopic. So, what do you think is the impact of education and training on data ethics and on security protocols and everything? Because I personally think uh, it is not a one-person job being working in the security department and everything to ensure that everything is going fine, because you can be a like 1500 people company, one person makes a mistake and everybody is compromised. So I think it's a shared responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. Each of us has a responsibility to train ourselves to learn more and more about the recent techniques, the recent breaches and everything. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So look, I think it's a pretty well established fact that security is a shared responsibility, and it's on everybody, right? It is everybody's responsibility. At the end of the day, as a security professional, and I run security organizations, I need people bought in to the idea of security and understand what their role is, because nobody's going to be watching. Everybody has to do their job, and they need the freedom to do that, to do what they need to do. but they need to be aware of the decisions they make and how they operate. So that's really, really important, right? So that is something that you have to establish from day one in any security program. Establish roles and responsibilities, and help people understand what their role is and how you're going to support them being successful. Right? Simple example. I'm not gonna check your email for you. You're going to be the one that checks their email. We can put as many controls and capabilities in place to prevent malicious content from being delivered into email, but no technology is perfect. It will happen that somebody gets a malicious email with a malicious payload. What we need to do is educate users and individuals so they are good at identifying what could be malicious, and are they question stuff, like don't trust everything so easily. Know what telltale signs for a malicious message may be, and exercise due caution in how they operate. So it's education and awareness is always has been and always will be a key component of any security program. So I don't think that changes whether you're in the office or you are working remotely. However, we do need to identify what are the risks of remote work and make sure that we are addressing those and educating our users about those as well, right? Again, we put all the capabilities and controls to centrally block bad things from happening, but users need to be aware that no technology is perfect and they have to exercise due caution as well. And things change slightly when you are working remotely. Like, you don't have the physical security controls that you would have at an office, where you know that everybody coming into the office is an authorized individual. So you have to take care about your surroundings and where you are, making sure you take care of equipment and any information or data that you have.
That's my LAN cable. Fix that. Hopefully, should not be a problem again.
All right, where'd you lose me?
So you were talking about uh, malicious emails.
Yeah, so I mean, I think um, what I was saying was, like, everybody has to do their part, and then we must educate all our users uh, about the threats that they face and how they can quickly identify them. They should question everything, right? Let's not blindly trust anything that you don't know where it's coming from, because no technology is perfect. We can put in all the controls to block malicious content, but it's going to get through. The bad guys are always adapting. They're always smarter than technologies. They got to get it right. We got to get it right every time, and all they need is one person to do something nefarious, right? So I think education awareness is a key component of any security program, making sure people understand their responsibilities. The thing that changes a little bit for remote users is the content and what risks that we need to identify to them, right? So as a remote user, the biggest aspect, of course, is physical security. You're not in a secured location, which is controlled by the office, and we know that anybody in there is an authorized individual. So you have to be aware of your surroundings, who's looking over your shoulders, where you're working, taking care of your equipment, not leaving it in public. Also, how you handle any sensitive data, right? I think we live in a digital world. We should avoid physical copies of data as much as possible, because there's more chances of that being left, especially when they're in an uncontrolled environment. But we have to enable our users and give them the technology so they don't have to do something along those lines, right?
Yeah. So
So
I think, sorry to cut you off. So I think
yeah,
in this thing, that's also puts a responsibility on the like management side of the company. Like there are good tools like and I've worked in companies where we never got to see any passwords. Everything was shared through tools like one password. All of the configurations and everything was in there, so you just get it from there. So I guess we can of course support people
Yeah.
through tools. And one more thing, one interesting fact that I would like to share. I once saw the security department of a company. They started sending phishing emails to people themselves. So, and whenever somebody got fished through that, they would just put that in channel, like, don't do that. And that actually made people so sensitive and so much on their toes, like they just became extra secure. So, do you think some actions or some tests like that they can add value, or is it something that can create a negative culture?
No, phishing exercises are a key component of your training program. Like if I it's fairly common practice as part of any security program to have phishing exercises. I think we should do them quite often um, and teach people on the fly. Like there's some great capabilities out there where um, you can train individuals on what they need to be looking for when they look at malicious emails, and it better that they learn from um, training emails that we send them versus something that's actually malicious and that can harm the organization. So, yeah, education and awareness cannot just be about doing a CBT or a message going out to individuals. We have to make it fun. We have to make it engaging. We have to make it something that is impactful. So, I think on the education and awareness side, we've got to get away from just monthly emails or a CBT because uh, I don't think that's effective. Any content we create has to be gripping, has to be something that people remember. I think simulations and trainings are a better way of educating individuals and really putting them through a scenario. Even conducting tabletop exercises on how you would manage incidents, that's all part of an education and awareness program that we should consider when we're thinking about uh, how best we bring all our users up to speed.
So, talking about policies, so do you have any like key policies in mind that every organization should implement? Like there is spam emails, training and policies regarding spam emails, and then there are policies for protection of your hardware, like doing keeping your hard disk encrypted, putting a sleep timer on your laptop, and then there are policies like I love that there's this concept of like zero trust policies, like whichever request comes to you, that's mostly on the server sides, but whichever request comes to you, you always have to, you never believe it. You always have
Yeah.
to authorize it. So can
Look,
you tell some key policies that you think are the most important for any organization?
look, policies are just words written on a piece of paper. I think the key is to implement the capability, to enforce those policies through technical capabilities, right? So when you talk about zero trust networks, or you talk about managing passwords, like the key is to enable and make available to our users capabilities and technologies that one are user friendly, so they give them a good user experience, right? Because if things are not easy, things don't have a good user experience, your adoption rates are going to be really low, and you're going to have people who are not going to be happy, and they're going to try to find workarounds. So look for, and technology has come a long way where we have a lot of capabilities with a great user experience, right? So we talk about passwords. Passwords have been around for so long. Passwords are a little antiquated, right? We know that passwords get phished. There's credential stuffing attacks. People don't I get annoyed. I've been doing security for 23 years. I come across a website and I can't select the password because they have some crazy policy. They have a crazy password policy that I myself cannot create one. So password managers are great. I'm a big fan of passkeys and FIDO2 compliant authentication mechanisms. with most systems are moving towards. So passwordless authentication using biometrics or a token that is assigned to your machine. There's a lot of good things, a lot of good tech out there that makes things easy and makes remote work easy. As far as policies go, I think uh, we should talk. I like to talk more about controls than just policy. Like from a policy perspective, I think we should think about, if you're a remote worker, are there restrictions I want to put on you uh, as far as where you work? Like you have to work within the constraints of the law. I will tell you, it also there is no one size fits all. It depends on the organization and what kind of business they are in and what kind of regulations they have to abide by. I tell you, there are a lot of companies that handle a lot of sensitive data or have sensitive clients that have policies which forbid their users from working remotely in, say, China, right? That's because the Chinese government um, has laws which allows them access to anything on digital equipment. Plus, they have laws against importing encryption, things along those natures. Some companies just don't want to deal with it. Those kind of policies you can look into. The others, I think we should talk about capabilities and control. So if you start talking about an a laptop, which basically um, that moves along around with a remote user, it basically becomes a gateway into your network and in your systems. So it is basically a perimeter device, whether you like it or not. So you want to make sure that it is appropriately secured, hard drives are encrypted, you have good anti-malware protection capabilities on them. You can consider application control capabilities, so you can control what kind of software goes on it, because there's a lot of software out there that can be malicious as well. uh, Strong authentication controls. You want the ability to do remote wipes, you want the ability to do remote kills, and along the lines of zero trust, I think you should always consider that every device is compromised. Like um, that's a way to that's a good way to handle remote users. So you are putting security on the systems that they access and not just trusting a device that has authenticated to your network or has access to your environment. And honestly, the other thing is, in today's day and age, like, perimeters have eroded. Like, there is no the concept of, here's our data center, here's our network, is going away. Most companies operate in public clouds. Most companies use SaaS solutions for their corporate systems that are accessible anywhere, from any system. So that's how the world operates. So you have to really think about security of the data at its source, as opposed to building an environment that is hardened with walls around it.
Okay, so I just want to add one more thing. So I have found, like, if you have some fine-grained controls defined for the data, like there's this concept of just enough access. Like whenever, like, let's say I need access to some part of the data, I should only get access to that part, not the whole database and stuff like that. But of
Yeah,
course, that adds like more cost to managing it and everything. So what do you think about that?
yeah,
And do you think it's a good idea to like define some point of contacts for different kind of data access and different kind of infrastructure access and everything?
yeah. Look, um, least privilege has always been a foundational principle for cybersecurity. Only give access to what you need and nothing more. That reduces your exposure and that minimizes the risk that you have. Because the only way to make anything really secure is turn it off. But at that point, it's completely not usable. So you have to strike a balance between usability and security. I want to secure data. I don't give anybody access to it, but then it's useless and nobody can do their jobs. So you try to, the ideal situation would be some sort of just-in-time access, that you get access to the data that you need at that time, and that access is revoked once you don't need it. But that's costly. It's costly. It's got a lot of friction. it's not a good user experience, and there are no technologies, no good technologies that can make that happen. I'm sure some vendors tout that they can do that. So it's a balance, right? You're not going to create custom views and custom access profiles for each and every user because they have a different need. That's where you balance what's a good set of profiles, and make some compromises. But absolutely, least privilege is and always will be a commanding principle for cybersecurity, right? You want to minimize your threat surface. You want to minimize the attack vectors that can get to them, and access to those systems, access to that data is extremely important. Now, the concept of data owners has also always been around. As a security professional and leading a bunch of security organizations, I do not know or understand the data that my company has better than the business. The business that actually uses that data, they're the custodians. They know what that data needs to be used for. They know the sensitivity of the data. We're here to guide them and put a framework around them, and give them a safety net when things go wrong. But at the end of the day, as we started off with, security is everybody's responsibility, right? It is a distributed problem. They should have data ownership. At the end of the day, I don't know. I don't have a good understanding of who should and who shouldn't have access to that data. It should be the data owners who say these individuals can have access, these individuals cannot have good access, they cannot have access. Plus, what is acceptable use of that data? This is very similar to anything in security, right? Even if we have an incident, I can't do incident response by myself. I need the owners of those systems and that data involved, because they're the ones who can help me determine, is something bad or not? What is the impact going to be? What are the decisions? What decisions our decisions how will they impact the business? And presenting them options of how we curtail certain issues. That's all the business's decision. So ownership of systems and data is really, really important, and I think it should always be the business that actually owns that data, understands their data, uses that data, and has authority over that data.
Makes sense. So that was actually my next question. Like, where do we strike the balance between the usability and security? And what you said, it kind of like explains it. Like the business owner or the data owner, they should be doing that.
Yeah. Well,
So
but usability is kind of important also in the sense. Look, I'm not only responsible for security. At my current organization and at my previous one at Spotify, I had productivity as well. So uh, I oversee the department that provides user endpoints and access and all that good stuff. And especially in that space, you start really thinking about the user experience. So the laptop you use, if I want to secure it, you'll hate using it because I'm going to lock it down and I'm not going to let you do anything. And I'm going to be like, laptops are secure. But Mohammed's sitting there saying, I can't do my job because I just don't have access to do anything. So I always believe in giving users a great user experience, where everything that they're allowed to do and they need to do happens without any issues, without any friction. And we put guardrails around their needs, not in front of them, right? So
that that's a
you
great
have
one.
to you have to
Yeah.
you have to determine that for your own organization. You have to figure out what the risk tolerance for your organization is. You got to figure out what your users needs are. I think a product driven approach is a good approach to really understand what your customers needs are, and then build your security capabilities, your technology capabilities accordingly.
Cool stuff. So as we mentioned earlier, like remote works gives you a lot of freedom. So what do you think about establishing policies and controls for the travelers, uh, for remote users who are like traveling to the foreign countries? Like, uh, here we should deal with legal concerns and with the security concerns. So,
Well,
what's your take on
look,
it?
a lot of the legal concerns are things that finance and HR need to worry about, right? What are HR policies of where people can work? Financially, how long can you work somewhere else? What are the tax implications to the organization, to the individual? I leave that to the professionals on that side. I think from my perspective, a remote user is a remote user. I don't care if they're down the street or they're in Timbuktu, right? Um, we need to educate them when we need to put in the controls that are going to protect them against all sorts of malicious things on the public network or in the external environment, right? So, as we said, we build the controls, we apply the controls on the endpoints and our infrastructure, we educate our users, we do ongoing exercises and simulations to test our controls. Uh, and you do that continuously because you're always trying to improve and always trying to tweak and always trying to keep up with new exploits. But from policy perspective, like I think it's something I partner with our legal and our HR, with my HR partners to figure out as a company what do we want to allow people to do and disallow people to do. But I think from a security perspective, the way I look at it, I don't care. Uh, I need to protect the environment, whether you're working from home, whether you're working in the office, whether you're working in a whole different country. I think the educational message may be slightly different, and how we train them and what we want them to know, but the controls and the capabilities kind of stay very similar. Now there is technology that helps enable that access, so we do want to make sure that we are part of any decisions that are made on what kind of remote access technologies are put in place and how we secure them, what kind of visibility we have in them. The other piece is the monitoring piece on the security side, right? We should be aware of where people are and what's normal activity, what's anomalous, and be prepared to react when uh, malicious things do occur.
Cool. And you should always have a good disaster recovery policy too. Like, let's say you should have good backups and everything.
Yeah, yeah. So incident response, security again is you have the idea of layered controls. You need to be able to identify um threats. You need to be able to protect from them. You need to be able to detect them. So you need to be able to prevent, detect, respond, recover, and so you got to look through all phases of that, all layers of that, of controls. You can't rely on one control and think that you're going to be fine.
Cool. So, Nami, like, if we try to round all that up with like one core concept that we can tell people, like, I believe that we should tell people that you should own the data. You should always feel like this is your data, like whatever data of the company that you're working in, and you should protect it like it's your own. You should like
Yeah.
nobody would
Look,
like to keep their personal password open, and they will never type it in front of like two people's watching. So I think if we can just create this sense of ownership and this sense of responsibility in everybody, I think that would be a core key concept that we can tell people about that.
as I said, your starting point for any security program should be to very clearly state that security is your responsibility. Security is everybody's responsibility. So don't think just because there's a security organization, you don't need to do anything. Security begins and ends with you. You are responsible for your laptop, your data, whatever you access, you are responsible for it. Don't think that there are going to be controls that are just going to magically solve all the problem,
There aren't
right?
any.
Yeah. Those are fallbacks. Those are just in case. Because if you do your part, we won't have problems. Don't go to malicious websites. Don't go to something that you don't trust. Don't open emails that you don't know where they're coming from, right? That's just simple table stakes.
So
No, yeah, no amount of technology can beat those threats.
yeah, so again, that's about the balance that we have. Like I've seen companies like install MDM softwares, and then again, so if I try to get the gist out of it, so there are like multiple factors. Number one, we should consider what kind of data are we dealing in, and that should affect the most of the decisions and most of the controls that we put in place. And the second thing would be the user base and how often do you use that data. Like it can be possible that the people, the developers that are working, they do not need actual data to do their debugging. Like
Yeah,
uh, we can have some controls. Like if you need some data, we can just always obfuscate the data from production, get a copy to the developers, and they can use that. So again, it's a shared, it's a combined effort that everybody needs to make sure that we are safe, our clients are safe, and our organization is safe.
yeah. So I mean, data classification is again a foundational part of any security program. Classify your data so you know what sensitivity is and what kind of controls you want to put in place. The other thing that I always say is, especially in the remote world, we should never take data out of structured systems, right? Data should not be mobile. uh, Allow users to access it within that web app or whatever application or whatever system it is, so they view it and not extract it, because once you extract it from those systems, you lose control of that data, and then then all bets are off, right? Unless there are, I've seen, unless there is, there are technologies which allow the security policies and controls to travel with the data, which is something that, encryption kind of achieves that. But encryption is a double-edged sword, because encryption does render data useless, so it makes it really, really hard to do anything. But ideally, from my for my money, I want system to live in I want data to live in structured systems and not be extracted from them and taken out and become mobile. Like, I think that's something that everybody should invest in and make sure that their systems are robust enough to allow the functionality that is needed by their users without having to take that data out of them.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Nami, it was really informational for me, and I hope for everyone listening to this too. So we can conclude this, and if you would like to add any final thoughts, anything.
No, look, thank you for having me. I think the remote world is here to stay. Um, and technology has come a long way where working remotely is very, very effective. So uh, we'll keep on adapting. We'll keep on building controls. I think we have good security capabilities as well. It's just a matter of staying ahead of the bad guys.
And
Yeah.
bad guys are smart. All right, thank you very much for taking out the time, and all right, bye.
All right, Mohammed. Good talking to you. Have a good one.